Philadelphia Eagles, if you look at this offseason, hey, big offseason for Coach Sirianni in the entire Fly Eagles Fly bird community over there.
Yeah.
But the Eagles add, alongside Darius Slay in their backfield, they add offensive weapons. Coach Sirianni gets another year under his belt. Are the birds up to something?
Not only did the Philadelphia Eagles have the best offseason they could have possibly had, but they had the best offseason of any of the 32 NFL teams. When you think about where the Philadelphia Eagles were 2 years ago in 2020, dead last in the NFC East, 4-11-1 record, the franchise just looked like they were going nowhere. But where they are now, after this offseason, after shocking everyone last season by making the playoffs with a record of 9-8, and then after this offseason setting themselves up to be a possible threat in the NFC playoff picture, this offseason helped set this team up for the present to be in contention right now, quite possibly could be the favorite in the NFC East. They didn't just set themselves up for now, but they also set themselves up for the future. Looking forward for the next few years for this Philadelphia Eagles team, it will only get better from this point on. The Eagles had an incredible offseason when you look at it. In this video, we're going to be talking about everything that happened throughout the offseason and how this set the Eagles up for success now and years down the road. So despite making the playoffs last year, the Philadelphia Eagles had plenty of weaknesses that were very apparent throughout the season, and they were exposed in that playoff game against the Buccaneers. So heading into this offseason, Howie Roseman and the front office needed to look to address these problems. One of the most glaring problems that was surely on Howie Roseman's mind as they entered this offseason was the pass rush. The pass rush the year they won the Super Bowl was one of the best in the entire league. The run defense was the best in the league. And last year, their pass rush was second to last in the entire NFL. They only ended up with 29 sacks on the season. Just for reference, the number one team on that list was the Pittsburgh Steelers with 55 sacks. So that shows a big difference there. And the only team that they were behind, or the only team that they were ahead of, were the Atlanta Falcons, who only had 18 sacks in the entire season. So heading into the offseason, first thing Howie Roseman did was address that pass rush. He added Haason Reddick, the person with the 5th most sacks over the past 2 seasons in the NFL. Last season he had 11 sacks. 2 years ago he had 12.5 sacks. Haason Reddick will be a great addition to this Philadelphia Eagles pass rush, and will surely add to that total of 29 sacks that we saw last season. They also went out with their first pick in the NFL draft in the first round with the 13th overall pick and selected defensive tackle out of Georgia, Jordan Davis, 6'6", 340-pound beast. He'll come in and he'll be a good dev piece, good rotational lineman, and will develop into one of the franchise cornerstones potentially on the defense. Another area of weakness for the Eagles last year was their linebackers. So they went out and they signed a really underrated player, Kyzir White, who ended up with 144 combined tackles last season, which was the 8th most in the whole league, and he also had the 8th most solo tackles in the entire league. And they signed him to a 1-year, $5 million deal. Really good value move, and he will come in and make a huge contribution on this Philadelphia Eagles defense. And then in the draft, in the 3rd round, very potentially they got the biggest steal of the entire draft in Nakobe Dean out of Georgia as well. He was ranked one of the top players coming into the NFL draft, and he fell all the way down to the 3rd round. The Philadelphia Eagles picked him up, and he could be a really, really good player for this Philadelphia Eagles defense. And he could be a leader at that linebacker position as well, if we're basing it off of what he did at Georgia. And then a final weakness that the Eagles had last season was their wide receiver depth. So they went out in the offseason and they obviously made the biggest trade of the entire draft, trading for star wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans, A.J. Brown, one of the very best young receivers in the entire league, and they signed him to an extension as well. So he's going to be here for a long, long time, and they're going to pair him up with Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins. And that receiver trio could be one of the best in the league, especially the duo of Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown is going to be insane and pretty hard to stop. And then they also added another pretty solid receiver that's not really being talked about a lot, Zach Pascal from the Indianapolis Colts. From what Nick Sirianni says, he's a really hard worker, and he's been productive for the Indianapolis Colts over the few seasons he's been there. He's racked up over 600 yards, receiving a couple times, and he seems to make plays when they are needed in those games. So one of the biggest focal points of the entire offseason was addressing the problems that the team had last year, and Howie Roseman went out and did just that. Not only did the Philadelphia Eagles add a bunch of key players, they also re-signed a couple of their key guys, starting with quite possibly the heart and soul of the Philadelphia Eagles team, Jason Kelce, bringing him back for a 1-year, $14 million deal, convincing him to not retire, and he comes back 1 year, $14 million. Jason Kelce, I don't really need to say much about him. He's just going to be, he's so good, and he is such a big piece of what the Eagles do. And they also brought back one of their best players in franchise history, in my opinion, Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox, they decided to cut him and then re-sign him shortly after to a 1-year deal, bringing him back. He's been such a good defensive player for this team for a long time, and hopefully continue it for 1 more year. And then they re-signed some players like Anthony Harris. The team needed a safety. They brought him back. And they brought back Boston Scott for some more running back depth behind Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell. And they also re-signed Derek Barnett, which I wouldn't say I was thrilled about, but he is a talented player. He is a decent pass rusher. The only problem with him is he doesn't always finish with the sack when he actually gets the pressure. And then the biggest thing with him is his penalties. He has more penalties than sacks in his entire career. But they brought him back for 2 more years. So hopefully he can figure it out in these couple seasons in Philadelphia, because it seemed like no one else really wanted him. But that just adds to the depth of the pass rush that the Philadelphia Eagles improved throughout this offseason. And then some of their other key additions, obviously the most recent one being James Bradberry, cornerback from the New York Giants, former Pro Bowler, one of the very best corners in the entire league. They got him to pair him up with Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox. Those 3 corners, especially the duo of Slay and Bradberry, is going to be one of the best cornerback pairings in the entire league. And just that trio is just really good all around. James Bradberry, one of the best zone coverage corners in the entire league, coming into this very zone-heavy scheme by Jonathan Gannon to pair him up with Darius Slay, and now he'll be the number 2 cornerback. I'm sure he'll make a ton of plays for the Philadelphia Eagles this season. They signed him to a 1-year, $7.5 million deal that can be worth up to $10 million. And then another player that they ended up drafting in the 2nd round is Cam Jurgens, center, the heir to Jason Kelce, as most likely Jason Kelce will probably retire after this season, and they ended up getting Cam Jurgens to fill in for him. All these moves have set the Philadelphia Eagles up to be competitive right now, to contend for that NFC East title, to contend for a top seed in the NFC, and to go deep into the playoffs. And something else that's just really important is they set Jalen Hurts up for success. They got him a ton of weapons. They have players like A.J. Brown now, along with Devonta Smith, along with Quez Watkins. They still got Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott in the backfield. They got Dallas Goedert at tight end, and that offensive line is still there. They've set Jalen Hurts up for success, so he can really show if this should be his team moving forward, and he should remain the starting quarterback for this franchise moving into the future. But now for all the people who want to say, oh, Jalen Hurts can't throw. Jalen Hurts is a career backup. I get it. I completely understand, because there's definitely concerns about Jalen Hurts moving forward. This season is to see if Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy or not. That's what this season's for. And that's one of the reasons why this offseason was so successful for the Philadelphia Eagles, is because they got everything Jalen Hurts needs to try to be successful for this season. We're going to see how he improves all the areas that he needs to improve in this season with an improved supporting cast. And if he doesn't play well enough, then the Eagles have now added a ton of players that are young. Those players are still going to be there, and that sets up the next quarterback to come in and be successful with this team as well. And one of the most underrated moves of the offseason, in my opinion, was the trade Howie Roseman did with the New Orleans Saints before the draft that ended up getting them another first-round draft pick in next year's draft. Because, let's face it, there's no one in this draft, no one that we really thought that would be an improvement on Jalen Hurts moving into this season. So what Howie Roseman did was he got another pick next year. So if Jalen Hurts doesn't show that he's the guy this season, he can go get his guy next year. And that's one of the main reasons why this offseason was so successful. Not only did the team get better right now, they're going to be set up looking good for a couple of years now. No matter who the quarterback is, they're in shape to go get their guy next season if Jalen isn't it. And if Jalen is it, that's great. They can continue building for the future and to be contenders next season as well. This was quite possibly the best offseason Howie Roseman's ever had. And the crazy thing about this whole thing is it still might not be over yet. You see rumors about players like Jesse Bates coming out. Who knows? You never know at this point. Howie Roseman could pull something off. So we'll see. But that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. If you did enjoy this video, subscribe for more Eagles videos just like this and videos covering the Sixers as well. And drop a like down below to help support the content and push this video out to other people. And that's all I got for this video. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.